There you go.
Anybody there?
Nope. Okay, so we're on to approval of the minutes. If somebody wants to make a motion,
So move.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
I have a
Aye.
correction.
Oh, okay.
Did I do that in the wrong order?
I don't know.
On page 2 of the minutes, at the top of the page, removal also suffered a bit, but we are still below our goal. Shouldn't that word be limit? Weren't you talking about the limit of nitrogen? Or are you talking about the goal of how much you wanted removed? I thought the word should have been limit.
We have a limit and we might, can you read what it? Okay, so we didn't remove as much as we normally do, I guess is how I'd say, but we're still below our goal, our
Goal
limit.
for removal. Okay,
Right.
all right.
So you're
So no
requesting.
correction. So that was a request for clarification. I guess I don't need a correction.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes? Say
Aye.
aye. Aye. So they're approved unanimously. So no communications and bills, consultant reports, changes to sewer use attorney report. So we're on to Public Works Director report, unless there's something before that meeting.
Nope. We're all set.
Right.
Maybe I missed it, but did we get, other than all the stuff about beard and, did we get the normal sort of monthly
Yeah.
report?
At the end.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay. I was, oh,
Okay, so on budget, I did go to the town council capital improvement program budget meeting last night. And they approved all the WPCA projects, all 2 of them unanimously. And then Thursday night is the general public works and also our sewer operating budget we presenting to the council. And it goes on to the RTM after that. We did receive a few applications for the operations supervisor, so probably setting up interviews for that, which is good news. And that's all I have to report.
Great, thank you. So I guess we're on to the facility report. You're on, Harry.
Okay, so we treated 144 million gallons. We continue to perform better than our permit requires. We did have one permit violation this month on the 13th. This was during heavy rain storms. We lost some solids through the effluent. So it measured 97 milligrams per liter. Our permit limits 50 milligrams per liter. That gets reported DEP. There's not like a penalty or anything for it. It's just a notification. The same with nitrogen. So just to further clarify on the nitrogen, we don't really have a permit limit. We have a goal. And if we meet the goal or exceed, or annually discharge less than the goal, then we actually get money paid to us. If we don't meet that goal, then we have to pay money. So our limit's 153 pounds per day. So for March, we averaged 166. The those storms created, high flows that were actually a couple of times off of our ability to meter what the rate was. So that creates havoc with the plant to some degree. So we didn't do as well as we did, but we did as we should. But it's kind of unavoidable. It's kind of unavoidable. We can't control the rate that it comes.
Here we go again on Thursday and Friday.
Yes.
well, is it gonna rain hard,
I heard one that said, I heard one that said up to 2 inches. Yeah, again.
So we have the rest of the year to catch up on that 166 pounds per day, so I'm not worried.
Get some money back from last year.
We did, so they just came out with the totals, you know, they total all the plants in the state and do their magic numbers, so we're gonna get $700 back this year. It's not a lot, but it's better than paying you.
Better than paying, yes, I agree.
It's a lot of money. So.
Okay, anything further, any further questions? I do actually want to go back to one thing, Greg, but, where are we at with the, infiltration study? Is that what it's called for the, like up by towards the Navy base?
Yeah, the Northwest Interceptor.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I had a couple of the comments here. Their field work, their data collection is complete. We're just waiting for them to distill that into their
okay.
report. So as far as the other projects ongoing, the primary clarifier, that design is complete and waiting to be able to go out to bid with that. The same with the A generator replacement. Gravel Street pump station renovation, that's under construction. They're working along on that. I mean, they're probably, I hate to estimate a percent complete, but
Don't bother. Construction is ongoing at my house and it just is ongoing.
I think I may have asked this the last time around, but is the fact that the Gravel Street station is being worked on, was that related at all? There was a big flooding on Pearl Street and on Gravel Street during one of those storms. I mean, I was on my bicycle and there was like 5 inches of was that related to
No,
that?
it wasn't from the pump station work, no. I don't know, it's just crazy, the water that's coming through this year.
Yeah.
Well, it runs down
Right.
gravel and Pearl
Yeah,
Street.
well, I just had the impression that maybe the sewers had just backed up and couldn't handle the amount of water that was being thrown at them. You know, I mean, it was because there in that section of the road, there are, you know, there's drains, but they obviously weren't able to keep up with the amount of water that was coming into them.
This is just our sort of renovations for older as we're progressing through the various pump stations.
Right.
And
Yeah, or place we got some refurbished pumps and some new motor controllers and electrical upgrades, so.
So the Burgess Park and Lestertown Road pump station generator replacements, they are expected to be delivered in May. That keeps moving.
So supply chain issues, what a surprise.
All right.
I wonder what the bridge collapse in Baltimore might do this kind of thing.
Hadn't even thought of that.
I've been following that. So
As long as the generators wasn't on that boat.
a lot of stuff on that boat.
And Burgess Park pump station replacement, that design is proceeding. As is Mumford Cove pump station. Those two pump stations design is in work, in process.
When it says replacement, that means they're replacing the entire, whatever's there, they're totally
The
replacing.
pump station, right? Burgess Park is kind of I mean, they have these, they call them can station. They're like this prefab package that gets buried. And they're good, but when they fail, you end up
Okay,
having
just
to
replacing. the whole
replace the
thing.
whole thing, right? That's all I have. Unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you in the middle of the. Any other questions?
In reading, yes, I do, although it's not on Harold's report really, but the materials that you sent, Hugh, including the ARPA applications by Beard and the cheese
So
people.
that's coming up in the old business?
Oh, I was looking, there were two terms they're acronyms. I
go
don't know what I
ahead.
mean. POTW,
Publicly owned treatment works.
I looked everywhere. Mood treatment works. And IBC.
Was that referring to the totes they're using?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, those big square
I don't
plastic
know what
totes.
that stands
I'm not sure what
for.
that means.
Okay.
They're like plastic, big huge plastic boxes with a metal frame around it.
Okay,
Is
thank you.
that the- but there's,
That's what they call the lakeside streaming.
Right, thank
I
you.
don't know if IBC is just a manufacturer. Who
well, so according to one of the,
Okay, can we do
okay, I'm sorry.
beard when we get to beard? So just in terms of the chair's report, I listened, no, I watched the town council. I don't remember if it was committee of the whole, probably, when the Groton Housing Authority presented, so Bob Frisk presented. And they asked at the meeting, you know, what assistance he might want from the town. And the what do you call it? The agreement they stopped, they withdrew.
Pilot.
Pilot, that's what I wanted. So the pilot got brought up again, and he got asked explicitly by one of the counselors if that meant that they were gonna bring it back, and he sort of hemmed and hawed, is my recollection. Now, the town manager made the point explicitly that that had been presented to us and we had been considering it, and they withdrew it. But I don't know what this means about whether it will or won't come back. We'll see. But there were only two things where he talked about, you know, ways the town could help out financially. And honestly, I don't remember what the other one was. So anyway, so I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware, and we'll just leave it. There's nothing for us to do, but there is some possibility they'll come back with it.
So we may be seeing them again.
We may be seeing them again, although I think this time around, I at least feel a lot more prepared because I sort of understand what it is that they're talking about. And
The board meeting. I live there at Groton Housing, at Grasswood Gardens. And I've been attending all of the board meetings and the property management meeting because of the magnitude. It's my home. The last meeting, which was a week ago, I guess, they're talking about a retention basin, a particular type of retention basin that somebody wants installed because we're in a public watershed water supply area. And I guess it'd be the area that presently is a little wetland that's right behind Groton Ambulance, but it's on our property. And the executive director said he had talked to somebody in the town about, we can't do this. The cost of that retention basin would be digging out. He did, and there'd been a very rough calculation of the square yards or something, 100 truckloads worth to dig out, and then so many truckloads worth of some type of a particular size gravel, and then the permeable membrane, and then the pumping and all of that. He said that would take up, I think he said, half of our construction budget. Right. And so he was trying to he talked to somebody in the town about possibly getting that waived.
right, well,
So that
maybe that was the other item. I really, you can go. I don't remember what the other.
And there is some other
was.
grant money that he's applying for.
Good. Okay, so that's the only thing. I just wanted to make people aware that there had been that
Thanks for that.
discussion and that, you know, may or may not come back. So on to old business, our update on Beard and Mystic Cheese. So first of all, I really appreciate that we got sent all this information because I couldn't find the ARPA proposals. I don't know if they're on the town website. All I could find was the supplementary information that town council asked for,
Yep.
you know, later. And so I had that, but, so it was useful to have this all compiled together.
Yeah, I got the original applications all from Kevin Fitzgerald, who's our ARPA coordinator, so.
Right. Well, so where do we stand at this point?
Well, let's start with Beard.
Yep.
And, you know, I attached all their, you know, which is probably more information that you care to see, but at least you have it if you want to look at it. But their project is to purchase a trailer mounted tank for site, you know, on the side stream. I guess right now they're using some other type of trailer or something that, because I think they are side streaming right now, bringing them waste to Quantum Biopower in Southington. But the biggest thing that they're doing, and they're in the process of, is installing a manhole outside their building for their flow meter and as a sampling point. And I know they're working back and forth with my engineer on getting all the details of that. In fact, they've been communicating emails today. I tried to get a schedule from them, but I wasn't able to get one before tonight's meeting. But I'm thinking it's going to be within the next month. It'll be all installed. And
So am I correct in understanding from what I read that they're going to share that manhole with Mystic Cheese in regards to that's where you're going to access?
no,
Oh,
yeah, I guess I was under the impression that there was only one outlet of the building, but apparently there are two, which I didn't even know about. So Mystic Cheese does have a separate, is that correct?
Mystic
I-
Cheese is a separate.
I thought there was something in there about how, I think it was Mystic Cheese proposing that their outflow be computed by determining the amount that Beard was putting out because of their meter and then subtracting from the total.
thought so
That
too.
was the
So let me ask, so my understanding up to now was that they, at some point, the sewer lines from Mystic Cheese and Beard joined prior to the manhole where we were able to do sample. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the sewer lines come out of the building, join up, and then after that, there's a manhole where we can do sampling. And so the manhole that Beard will install will be just on their line.
Yes.
Right? Is that clear to everyone? It matters because of this issue. We have multiple issues here. We've been, you know, the proposals to a large degree, and our focus has tended to be, and I think somewhat appropriately, on reducing the strength of the sewage that they were releasing. But really, to do the whole thing, including being able to build them, we need to have them work on reducing the sewage strength, but then we also have to be able to know the sewage flow or potentially the water flow into the business, although that's not so clear with, anyway, let's leave it at that. And then we have to be able to measure the effluent strength that's coming out. And so those measurements could be made now for Beard in their manhole. So we will have specific data for Beard that is both the sewage flow rate out and the and when we sample the strength of that flow, right?
Right.
Just for Beard.
Just for Beard. So the problem becomes that for Mystic Cheese, we don't have a sewage flow rate at all. We just have the water flow into Mystic Cheese, and I actually, don't know offhand what that flow rate is, right? Because I meant to email and ask you to check it, because they say in their document that they process, I think it was 3,000 gallons of milk a month. So one of the questions becomes, how does the milk volume compare to the water volume in a month? But anyway, and then what gets complicated is
Yeah, I'm listening.
to know then we can sample the combined sewer strength at the manhole where we've been sampling and sort of deduct out what was measured for beard and get a difference that presumably represents Mystic Cheese.
But if there's a second manhole, of course, they haven't budgeted for it, but if there's a second manhole, doesn't that mean that they could be tested independently?
If a second manhole were installed on their line, which is not
part of their
currently
project.
part of the project.
I understand that,
Okay.
but is it possible for us to help them find some money at this point to solve this problem and separate them? Because that seems to be a bone of contention
I mean, no,
and
we don't have any
confusion on
money.
our part.
Right.
Subtract, do this, we hope, cross our fingers. I mean, if there were two measurement systems,
Right, it would be easier.
Ideally, that would be the case, but so we're kind of doing it a hybrid approach.
Right. So unfortunately, the time to have figured this out would have been before the ARPA request.
There, but the cheese application,
The cheese application,
seems to be talking about a system that's installed completely within MCC's existing manufacturing location.
That's their side streaming
that's
system.
Right.
the side streaming
Okay, I
system.
didn't quite get that.
Okay, so
I'm,
part of the issue is that as a cheese producer, Mystic Cheese is FDA regulated.
Right, I got that.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they couldn't start side streaming. They haven't started side streaming at this point because in order for them to do it, they needed to install
Right.
the stainless steel piping and have it all approved by FDA and et cetera, et cetera. And that's largely what their proposal was for ARPA funding was to do with that and some, I think I don't remember what the remaining money was again. Whereas Beard as a brewery, they already started doing some side streaming, but they were concerned that they would be overcharged by using their water flow rate
Your inflow, yeah.
Right. And so I think that's why they were more focused on getting a manhole installed because that for them had the potential to reduce their charges.
It seemed to me that that was a point well taken. I mean, the question of how much water comes into the plant would be something that Groton Utilities, right, would be concerned with, selling the amount of water. But we're concerned with what comes out.
Right, but we are able to bill
Based on
For-
inflow?
except for because of this recent law, not necessarily for breweries, but yes, that's how we're billing both businesses currently is based on their water inflow.
It's how we build commercial businesses is all throughout town is based on their water meter usage.
which
So they bill on
makes
per
sense
cubic
for
foot.
most because what goes in pretty much goes out, right? I mean,
Yeah,
for most
Most,
businesses.
yes.
And even for beer, I mean, the estimates seem to be that 75% or so is going out as sewage. So the reduction that's coming off as beer is a minority of their flow.
Okay.
Are we billing them sewage?
Mhm.
We are? Okay, based on the water flow still?
Yes,
Okay.
but not with the high industrial strength, right?
Correct.
They're just getting the
They're
regular
just getting
charge.
the regular charge based on water.
This will be interesting to see when they get the flow meter going, what the difference is. To track that for a while, see how it looks, but it does help us with that. As you mentioned, the new state statute about you can only charge them for sewage, not water going in.
Yeah. So on their letter back in twenty
They're
22,
being who?
Okay.
Beard.
go on.
the Beard's letter of
Page
June
6.
24th, 2022. Is it page 6?
The
They're not.
pages on the side right. Page numbers on the right side.
Oh, yes, there is 6.
Page
Yeah.
6.
This is written before the change in the statute because they were proposing that we figure out what their usage was by subtracting
That's
the amount of water the amount of alcohol that goes out from the amount of water that goes in. But we couldn't do that now, right? Because of that
No,
statute.
doesn't
you
matter
could
anymore.
do that.
Right, yeah, I guess it
Yeah.
doesn't matter because they'll have a meter.
Doesn't matter. 'Cause
But somewhere, I'm sure that I read somewhere that, I thought it was the cheese people were proposing that there be some sort of that their usage be determined by subtracting,
Yes.
but I couldn't find it here.
So I don't remember where it is in the Mystic Cheese information, but basically it's, again, they're not gonna have a separate manhole.
Right.
So the proposal was essentially to use the information from sampling at the combined sewer manhole, the one where we've been sampling, and subtract out of that the information from the Beard manhole that is yet to be, but will shortly be installed,
Right.
and use that to estimate what their sewage strength is.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I read that this morning, but I keep looking for it
I
now.
think
can't
it's
find
in
it.
their letter, but
There are a couple of issues with that. I just
yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. Go ahead.
So we own one sampler that we can put into a manhole. So we can sample Beard or we can sample the combined. We
Right.
can't sample them both at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's about a $10,000 sampler if we wanted to get another sampler to do them both at the same time.
Huh.
So, however accurate or inaccurate that is, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
one guy, somebody doesn't do anything that day that we're sampling. I mean, it's all hit or miss. And
Right.
Right, so, a lot of this, from my point of view also is how sort of episodic the production and releases are. If they were simply doing things continuously, then, it becomes much simpler to measure things. But if, they're doing releases, because things have to sit for several days in their cheese making process, and then they do releases, every few days or whatever, then that makes a huge difference in how the measurements need to be made in order to get a fair representation of what their sewage strength is, not just in let's say, a 1-day period, but what does it look like over a week or over, a month, over 4 weeks?
Does the sampler that you were just talking about, Hugh, is that just does that run continuously or is it just you say, okay, I'm gonna do it this morning at 11 o'clock?
So it's portable. The samples have to be kept cold. We have no place to plug it in. So this sampler is designed with ice in the bottom of it to keep the samples cold as it collects it. So you can run it for like a day, but you don't want to, can't really run it much longer than that. So yeah, you'd place it in the morning, hook it to whichever flow meter you're gonna put, you'll sample every, like, say, 200 gallons of wastewater that goes by, you'll grab a little sample.
Mm.
So you set that up and let it run for 24 hours and go back the next day and get it. And then you sample, you test the sample you've collected.
Yeah, so it seems like the hit or miss whether you get it when, at a time when they're actually dumping stuff out,
Right.
Right.
right? Especially the cheese place. I mean, I imagine that must be sort of episodic.
We probably both,
It just seems like the cheese would be even more, because I mean, it takes a
Well,
while for cheese. to
regardless, let's
age.
not speculate. Let's just acknowledge that the episodic nature is a
Okay.
problem.
Well, what I was wondering is, is the sampler that Harold referred to adequate for our needs? Adequate for the monitoring needs? If you can only, or is there no such thing as a sampler that just runs all the time and you can see the,
there is, but they're, I mean, they're expensive too, and to plug it in, so we'd have to have that installed on their site. It's got to be plugged in somewhere in their site. I don't know. Do you know how much those were? Do you remember? Because we just had to buy one for ours.
Oh,
The sample.
it was like between $12,000 and $14,000.
So that has the difference there is it has a permanent refrigerator part. So it's plugged in and keeps the samples as long as you need them to.
So what do you, how does it work? Do you go and collect the samples periodically or something?
Right.
How do you know when they were generated? Is there a way, or does it not matter really? Because
No, there's a controller that would tell you when you started sampling, and you can download the data of, how much of a sample it took and what time.
but that doesn't answer John's question, which is, how do you know that there's been an excess discharge at the time you've sampled? The only way you'd have any kind of idea is if you were doing it for a month and you could see sort of a pattern.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the more data you have, the more accurate it becomes, or less spiky.
So I think with the continuous sampling that you're talking about, it's sampling periodically at a set interval that you set up. It's keeping those samples, storing them refrigerated, and it's, I assume, combining them together as opposed to keeping them separate.
Together.
When it takes a sample now, and then an hour or three later, it takes another sample.
It's a read, not an
Oh,
actual
no, it
sample,
actually
right?
collects a sample and
does?
puts it in this big jug.
Yes, so it combines it into one single jug.
okay, wait a minute, it collects a sample, but does it analyze the sample, or is that done
No.
later on? Okay, so if it puts it into a big jug with all the other samples, then
So
how
you
do you
get
know?
an
Kind of a
average.
congregate.
You
Right, so
get
you
an
get
average.
an
Okay, well,
average
that's like
over the
over
time
that time.
from
period.
the last time you emptied that
Well, that makes sense.
jug. Yes, it makes sense. So you could collect a day, you could collect a week, I don't know if it would collect for a month, but
Yeah, I mean, we just
Probably.
do every day. You don't want to leave the sample sit too long. So, like at the plant, every morning we collect we swap out the jugs.
so let me ask this. There's this general permit for discharge from miscellaneous industrial users, which actually has a bunch of specifications about when sampling and so forth has to occur, although as I read it, and it's long and confusing, it appears that below below 5,000 gallons per time period, I can't remember month, week, day, which was higher than the water flow for either beard or Mystic Cheese, that the provisions didn't apply. Are they covered by this kind of permit?
Yes, the breweries are in there.
I mean, breweries are discussed in that general permit, as are other food processing facilities.
Right, and the dairy would also be there, just not specific, whereas the breweries are specific. I think the dairies are just, with other.
So we have at least one company in town that, like Doncaster or something, right? That is that are they covered under this?
No, they have an individual
They have
permit.
individual permit. And that individual, and are they both measuring their sewage outflow and doing the measurements on it?
Yes.
And that occurs that way because that's a condition of the permit that they have?
Yes,
Okay, and that permit is under what legal situation?
not sure, I mean, it's,
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, why does that apply to them but not apply?
so I think there's a threshold between like a small generator versus a large industrial.
In terms of
So-
the volume of sewage outflow based on whatever.
Right, so you get these big industries, metal finishing and stuff that generate strong stuff, and volumes of it. So they have their own individual permit that DEP, is likely to come down and inspect them and
So the state issues that.
right, DEP
Okay.
issues them a permit, just like we have a discharge permit, they have a discharge
I
permit.
see.
But then all these other smaller companies, they're covered under that miscellaneous industrial users general permit. I mean, for instance, car washes, they have to register under that. Food processing, smaller generators that aren't generating large volumes of high strength stuff.
So for like the permit, the DEP permit they're taking the samples and they're doing the measurements of BOD, COD, et cetera, or or is it coming to our town lab and we're doing those?
They're actually self-regulated. Nobody. The DEP doesn't, it's just self-regulated that or left up to us to enforce that they test. We test mainly for billing, so that's what's driving our
interest.
if we weren't billing them, then really they wouldn't be testing.
Right, but again, who's actually doing the analytical?
We would.
So how often do we measure their?
I mean, probably in the beginning, probably fairly frequently, like 5 times a month, maybe. If we can get a trend eventually and it's fairly consistent, then maybe a couple times a month.
And do we have any idea whether they have the same sort of episodic or their things much more?
I expect them to be episodic, and probably take quite a while.
Businesses.
Yeah, I think it'll take quite a while to get, a kind of an even, predictable trend. And the same with the cheese company, because I don't think they're continuous producing. I think it's batch.
Well, so it's beer batches.
Right.
Both of them.
And may I ask? So, John and I found what we remembered having seen, and in fact, I think it was written by you. So have you already come to an agreement with Mystic Cheese about how they're going to be monitored? Is that what this language is here?
Where is this?
This would be on page 6.
No,
Of-
that's what we were just talking about, was subtracting.
Okay, that's just a thought. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
a working,
rudimentary way that we can
Okay,
do it with-
okay.
since they don't have a manhole or a place to sample.
right.
And as far as the volume, they'll just still be billed on the water usage. Because they don't have a flow meter.
Well, you're saying here that this is what you are going to do.
Yeah, because we have no other
Right. Okay,
options at this point.
well, it makes a fair amount of sense.
And
We've
the-
got to do something. We can't
Right.
just not do it.
Right.
And the reason you can't use the other manhole is because there's no $15,000 to buy another monitoring system.
Right. Well, concurrently, we could do one day once, but
The episodic nature of their discharge, just with both of them, it makes it, I mean, pretty difficult to try to
Mhm,
see
yeah.
who's doing what.
mhm.
I guess you can smell it and see what it smells like, cheese or beer.
And that's a lot of time for your staff to invest in.
Right, because every time we put that sampler in the street manhole, it's a confined space entry, so there's a lot of equipment to set up and ventilate the manhole and gas analyzer before we send someone down in there.
Not like they're running over for 30 minutes, to pop over.
We probably get it done in 40 minutes.
Oh, okay, okay.
The other thing that Harry has said to me too is it's not like you can do this stealthily.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
Mystic Cheese and Beard are gonna see us put the sampler in the manhole so that,
Maybe today,
Turn-
wait,
Turn off that.
yeah, okay, yeah.
I know that in the materials, they're both saying that they can't afford to spend any more money. Isn't there some way to say to them, look, if you can't afford to spend more money to get a more efficient system monitor, then at least let's compromise and you'll pay us X dollars more per month towards a sewer bill that can't be defined at this point. Can you do that?
I've seen both of their products up in Maine, so I'm not sure
Oh,
how. I've had beer up in Maine,
Yeah,
so
you're
they're not,
not.
they're not
that's not what
struggling
you're
around
asking.
town.
no,
You're asking whether we can bill them. So my interpretation of the town ordinance is that we can bill them according to the formula that is in the town ordinance for high strength.
which both of those businesses object to as being over a heavier financial burden on each of them than they can manage. So I'm wondering, is it possible to increase the fee they have to pay to the town by something, even if not covering all the.
Some form of a negotiated.
Right, because if they can't afford to buy the equipment that's necessary and the town doesn't have the funds to install the monitoring equipment, which I would think would be the business's burden anyway, isn't there some way to get still some more money out of them that doesn't put them on the road to leave town, but recognizes that there's some uncertainty? Or is that not done? I'm new here.
Well, I don't know. It
No,
sounds
I mean,
like a creative.
yeah, under the
Thinking,
ordinance,
but-
like you said, all we can bill is on the flow and the high strength. There's no mechanism for adding additional fees or anything else.
I'll have to double check the ordinance. So the ordinance doesn't give any ability to the WPCA to work something out, to negotiate something different.
Well, okay, help me out here. Does the ordinance? Is it like a flat fee if you're a high emitter, so to speak? Is there a flat charge for those people or is it regulated by, it's a function of how much they put out, right?
There's a formula there that calculates based on the analytical results that tell us the.
Could you make an
VOD and
agreement as to
COD.
what the formula is? So that comes
Well,
down
It
to
already
it.
exists.
The formula.
Well, I know,
already
but
exists.
what the variables are that you put into the formula. So, I
That,
mean, you know,
that's all specified in the ordinance.
So,
right, but since.
so
but
that's what
since-
I'm looking for is sampling enough to
Right.
pick up
Yeah, I
some sort of
understand.
trend
that,
or
yeah.
average.
Well, but I think what Meredith's suggesting is that you come to an agreement as to what those variables are, based perhaps on your sampling and their argument about their sampling, and you come to an agreement that's sort of mutually agreeable as to what, because you're basically plugging X and Y into this formula, right?
Mhm.
So to the extent that you're saying X is 100 and they're saying X is 75, maybe you can make an agreement that it's 80 or 90. I think that's what you're
That's what I'm
basically.
saying, isn't there some way to compensate the town more appropriately without breaking their bank and losing business in town? Something that
I don't know if
neither,
you can do that. but I
yeah,
think that's
something
what-
Right,
that
you'd
neither
have to
party is
ask the
happy with,
town
but it does,
attorney
it's the,
whether
it
that
works.
Yeah,
That's what you do in negotiation.
right.
Right,
Everybody walks away unhappy.
um,
It's been successful.
okay, so, yeah, I mean, I would think that there was the possibility to engage in that sort of scenario, but in order to engage in even thinking about that scenario, we still have the problem of having to know what
Yeah.
measurements
Right.
we have, and we haven't done any measurements in a long time. The last time you were gonna do measurements, something came up as an issue, maybe with the sampler or something, and so it didn't happen. So I guess the question is, whether what we want to do at this point. We don't have to do anything immediately.
Well, I guess one thing we want to find out is whether or not they actually follow through. And you're saying that they're supposed to be getting something done that should be in place by our next meeting, right? Just
Yeah, Mystic
knowing,
Cheese's processing equipment supposed to be here this month for them to install so they can start side streaming their stuff.
Right.
And Beard is in the process. I mean, they've had a contractor. I think he came in, but he had the wrong size manhole. Said, order another one,
The company sent the wrong size
or
manual.
whatever. So I mean, I would expect probably within the next month, this stuff would be in.
right, I mean, and once it's in, then that's when we would really want
That's
to
when-
begin sampling so that we can get an idea of what
Then
their
we'll really begin
situation
to
is now that
understand
they've.
what's
Couldn't
going
the
on.
WPCA, hit them with a fixed date? June 1, for example, you have to get this, what, no, I mean.
This day.
We've been.
Yeah.
getting-
No, you're due. I'm just joking.
The issue has been things exactly like, so we had a fixed date, and then it turned out the town took much longer to, approve the ARPA funding.
But now that.
Et
that's
cetera,
no
et cetera.
longer-
Right,
That's done.
so I'm not in favor of more fixed dates because of things like they had a manhole delivered, went to install it, it turns out to be the wrong size, the installation gets delayed. So I think what's more to the point is we need to have a plan in place for what sampling we are going to be doing once. I mean, we can sample in the combined manhole right now. We've always had that capability. And, the question is, do we want to wait until Beard has installed their manhole?
If we were to do that,
So,
Or Mystic
Right,
Cheese is
or-
installed there.
right,
Why
and
not?
Mystic Cheese has installed their new plumbing to do side streaming and then start sampling.
and I thought they had already begun shipping some of their stuff over to that
That's what,
farm.
that's what.
When you
Mystic
say
Cheese.
they,
I'm sorry,
No.
Mystic Cheese.
no, Mystic Cheese can do nothing until they have FDA approved installation.
Piping and-
Beard started side streaming already.
Well, okay, and they're the ones who are shipping their stuff to. Where was it?
Compost farm.
Some compost
Yeah.
farm, okay. All right.
And the one measurement Harry did after Beard started side streaming was substantially lower than the previous measurements, is my recollection. It was still on the high side, but it was certainly a reduction.
So. Right now, until Beard gets this thing in place, you won't be able to tell if they're significantly reducing their. In fact, they aren't significantly reducing their outflow at the moment until they get their stuff installed.
No, Beard,
Mr.
Mr.
Cheese,
Cheese.
you said beer.
I said, oh, I'm sorry. did I
Yeah,
say
you
Beard?
did.
Words
That's
mean
okay.
what I want them to mean, either more.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all right, I understand what you said, Hugh, about not wanting a drop dead date, fixed date. But can this appear on the agenda every single month
It
and
does.
require?
That's been on the
Yeah.
agenda, so.
For the last 3 years.
you have the Excel spreadsheet that shows it's
Yeah,
been on virtually every agenda.
But I
No,
mean,
you had electronically to read.
I mean,
so-
how long is supply chain going to be and blah, 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 all gonna be an issue?
So
Don't
what
we have to hold their feet to
heard
the fire?
is that Mystic Cheese is supposed to get their stainless steel piping delivered this month.
their hands have been tied in a sense. They
Right.
have to wait. They have no option. I mean, I guess my takeaway after, spending time with this is that there is forward motion.
Right. I agree.
Yeah,
They're
It's
doing
just
everything.
Very slow.
Yes,
yeah. I think we should basically. Let's see where we are next month. I mean, because at this point, it seems like they're both making forward progress. Hopefully they will continue. I mean, it seems to be in their interest as well as ours for them to get this stuff completed. So, I mean, until they do, there's not much more we can do than what we've done already.
So the one thing I'd like us to do, and we don't have to do it today, I think we can wait until next month, is to essentially have a plan in place. I mean, Greg in his memo provided what he sees as a plan for how we're going to do this sampling. But I would review it again myself. And, I think we could certainly talk about how frequently, I've forgotten what you said. Well, 4 times a month, you'd say.
Weekly kind of, I think that's what Harry's, as an initial.
And if we did once a month for the Beard manhole, we do, once a week, we do then once a week for the combined manhole. It can't be the same day. Is that, I don't remember, was that the plan?
Yeah, I didn't get into that much detail. But
Okay,
our line Harry just Cruz to figure out.
and is that doable?
It is, but I'm not sure. No, I mean, there are two companies with episodic discharges. I don't know what kind of reliable data we'll be getting.
right.
Right, there's no way for us to know.
And
but-
your point is well taken. That, yeah, that they'll absolutely know you're there.
Yeah, but, well, I don't know enough about is it something that they can just do? I mean, can they just, oh, they're there, let's turn off the. It's hard to say.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, and based on what the previous measurements.
yeah, they haven't been doing it.
They knew that we were
Right.
there and we still got the
Right.
measurement.
Yeah, so
We got-
otherwise we wouldn't know right now that they're doing. what they're
Exactly.
doing. All right.
Okay, so let me backtrack just to ask a quick question. When we first discussed this, I remember being struck by how frustrated you were because you were describing some behavior like Sunday evening dumping kind of. Was that, was your sense that that was from both businesses?
I would say most I would say beer.
Here. Okay,
And you can smell beer, but I don't know how you'd smell dairy, but.
right, yeah, okay. That would have been my sense too.
Okay, so are there further questions right now? And it will come back for an update at our next meeting. And hopefully we'll be hearing that things are being installed and we're moving towards implementing sampling.
I do want to thank you and you for all your uh, hard work and investment of time in bringing us all up to date on this, or reminding us.
Yeah, I forget what I did
Yeah, yeah,
last
well,
month on it too, so it's
exactly.
good to go back.
So this is really
refresh.
valuable.
It was valuable to me. I can't keep track either. I don't remember things.
I have to say, this is the most interesting project we've been faced with in all these years.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes, and the
Seems to
one,
be the only
okay,
thing.
so where's our agenda? Because we're already at 6:30.
We're
Okay,
now on to revisions to
yeah,
town ordinance.
so now we're on to the next interesting item, revisions to the ordinance.
All right, so one of the issues that John, you had brought up was the industrial strength, the formula. And as you recall, we had that consultant that took a look at, increasing the minimum for BOD, COD, and suspended solids. And that was the plan, was to increase those amounts, the limits.
That's 15,132, right?
Yes, is the section for the charge.
132.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it's chapter 15. Is it 130?
Yeah.
15,132 is the code section.
Do we have that printed out?
Yeah, 133, 15-133.
133.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, you don't have this document.
okay.
Well,
This is a work in progress, because I've actually gone through and started like just doing some of the editorial stuff, like getting rid of asbestos cement pipe and, a lot of those changes.
Go ahead.
And changing the formula numbers and stuff. So my plan is, once we get through all this and Harry's reviewed it and gone through probably their, and I don't know if it matters.
Oh,
You guys review it or if the attorney reviews it first.
Oh, okay. Well, I should download that.
yeah, we got it. I'm sorry.
So it's a kind of a work in progress right now.
So, I guess the other question, or well, one question was whether we could add in requirements for metering sewage flow and doing sampling, which are in that general, whatever it's called again, the miscellaneous industrial user permit. Again, driven by the flow rate. Below 5,000, various things drop off in terms of requirements for sampling.
You're able to download?
Right, they list limits, but they don't tell you, and there's no guidance on how to enforce them or monitor them.
I see that.
Under utilities.
Right, that's another issue.
Yeah, so I was putting language in there that requires, that you spelled out the language that's in that new ordinance that manufacturers permits for beer shall install a flow meter. And they could add in the sampling. And this is stuff that, once we get this stuff in here, we can review with the town attorney, and this is what we want to do and get his take on it.
I'm good with that later.
Yeah.
We should
Um,
really download a PDF.
I'm having trouble.
So,
I don't remember how I did this. I think I went in. Blocked it.
We print it as a PDF.
okay, so would you expect to have, further progress on that for next meeting?
Yes.
I wonder,
I can, yeah, I'll include it in the agenda packet, so you have it ahead of time, you can read. And, you know, and the changes will be highlighted in red, so you don't have to go try to figure out what got changed, what didn't.
Yeah. Go ahead.
one thing I noticed in this, it never explicitly says that this ordinance applies to both domestic and commercial. And yet it goes on to talk about what will happen, how to treat commercial discharge. And so I think at least in the introductory sections, if you're gonna modify the ordinance, it should say something to the effect that this applies not only to residential sewage discharge, but to commercial or commercial sewage discharge for businesses that are up to X gallons or however you measure the amount of discharge, to make it very clear. Because otherwise it's sort of, it's odd that there's language in here that specifically applies to commercial sewage use, but it's not specified in the beginning of the ordinance that this is going to apply to both residential and commercial.
Yeah, and I think what's part of what's going on is this was drafted
1969, I believe, yeah.
very early.
Yeah.
But so I think sort of the bigger issue was whether you were connected to the sewers or
Yeah,
not.
I
if you
recognize
were
that there's been a change
connected,
of time
then-
in the last 50 years.
then,
As I'm saying, that if you're going to be doing revisions, it should.
I guess I'm wondering whether we want to say that it applies to residential and industrial, or whether we want to simply say it applies to any connection to the sewer system.
Whether residential
Ah.
or industrial, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, whatever,
Right.
Yeah.
because, you know, again, there may be businesses that are connected that are not industrial.
I-
Like,
And I take your
that's
point,
what I'm,
Yeah.
yeah,
just to make it very clear, though, that it's going to apply to any sewer user.
any sewer user, right, regardless of whether it's, you know, a residential or a business.
Whatsoever
Uh,
nature and wheresoever located.
And probably maybe needs to somehow acknowledge, well, there is already stuff in here about the federal. I don't know that it ever, I don't remember because it's been a while since I read this. You know, this issue of the different permits, the miscellaneous, the DEP permit, like for Doncaster. Those,
Versus the other one, which is what, like 5,000 gallons.
yeah, I don't know whether this ordinance recognized all those sort of permitting
Mhm.
things or not. Okay, good point. Anything else anyone wants to bring up in terms of the?
Just a little bit of proofreading on the memorandum, this memorandum. It says, under plan for measuring flow and strength, it says their results will be used to collaborate our results. I think you meant to say corroborate.
That's,
Okay.
yeah, I got- I picked that too.
Oh, okay. Helpful hint.
You know, it's funny, I just read it as corroborating.
Yes, right, right.
Type that and spell check changed it or something.
Yeah, right, exactly. Oh, it's terrible.
If you're doing that, then Laura, then on page 5,
Ah.
to be installed will automatically measure, not measuring
Oh, cool.
at the top line.
Oh, yeah.
Had that happen, where they've changed a real word to a different word.
And you didn't
You
know
don't
that
notice
word.
it because
Yeah.
you just keep going. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
But
this
then when they
AI
take
stuff
off-
that they sneak
I
into
miss
the,
it.
you
So
know, Apple is, they push a lot of that stuff in, and you can't, I guess you can stop it if you figure out the settings, but.
you can, but then you miss it.
Right, well,
I miss it.
Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground. I do think that there is progress. It's
Yeah.
been slow, but I think that progress is occurring. And I think part of what it sounds like you're thinking about in terms of the ordinance is, we want this, if food processing facilities were to be, created in town in the future, we hopefully have guidelines that are an ordinance and guidelines that allow us to deal with it more simply.
I'm kind of fearful that if a business was considering coming to town, they might be discouraged by what Mystic Cheese and Beard have to say. And again, it had to happen, but,
How long can the taxpayers continue to
True.
foot the bill,
true,
profit
very
making
good
entity?
point. Yep, good point.
well, they deserve our money. The richer you are, the more money you should get from us.
Okay,
Not
so our next meeting is May 14th.
Good to me.
And so, does that work for everybody? Although at this point, we would have a quorum even if one person didn't show.
So it's fine,
Just a-
again, it's 5:30, right?
Yeah, 5:30 on the 14th.
Yeah, because we do have to set the public hearing for the user fees.
Right, because we're gonna we're gonna set the public hearing, have the public hearing set the sewer rate, so the next 2 to 3 months, we have to deal with those
Procedural stuff.
procedural items.
Well, if we agree on that, then I think the next step is to move to adjourn, correct?
Yes,
I hereby move to adjourn.
Second.
and I think they're all in favor. Thank you.
Oh, when we first started talking to him, he just kind of